So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're here to talk about stop generating leads, start generating opportunities. This really came from a discussion that I had once with one of our client CEOs. He said, you know, what I want to hear from marketing is I want you to tell me, what does marketing put into my sales pipeline? I think that's a great question. We're excited to talk about that today. We do think that marketing has a role in putting things that are really highly qualified into a sales pipeline rather than early stage leads. That's what we're going to talk about today. Goldstein Group is a 34-year-old agency. We focus on B2B lead generation and branding campaigns. We really believe in the concept of measurable results. Our tagline is measurably better marketing. We're really excited about the ability to bring analytics to what we do. We've been doing that for 3 decades, way before AI. AI has certainly made it more exciting and fun to try to bring those analytic performance measurements to what we do. But we really believe that the approach that we take, marketing should be a process, repeatable approach that is driven by success metrics. And that's what we're going to talk about, how to do that. But one of the things that we're seeing from a lot of our clients and a lot of our discussions and in the marketplace in general, it is harder and harder to find new customers. Clients are telling us that. And I think there's a few reasons for that. One is that the sales funnel works differently than it has in the past. The sales funnel used to be defined by this nice linear sales funnel where people just move from stage to stage in an orderly fashion. That's not really the way it works anymore. Buyers are harder to reach than ever. They don't look at email. They don't answer email. It's harder to break through. They certainly don't want to meet with a salesperson. So getting FaceTime is really difficult. COVID has accelerated that. So it's just harder to reach a person and get in front of them to sell. Many sales teams are built and staffed to do a great job servicing current accounts, but they struggle finding net new companies to bring in. Marketing leads tend to stall in the early stages of a sales buyer's journey. Why is that? What can we do to address and unstop that? And then prospecting really costs a lot of money, particularly when we're stuck in early stages of the buyer's journey. What do we do about that? Those are some of the problems that we see out there. Now, the first thing that I mentioned is that the sales funnel isn't linear anymore. This is a slide that technology consulting firm, the Gartner Group, created a few years ago. Many of you probably have heard of it. And it does an excellent job in diagramming out what's called the complex sale. And for a lot of B2B companies that we deal with, the complex sale is really more common as part of the buying process. And what you see here is that they start the buying process in the upper left and they move down to this logical place in the lower right. But this is actually what's replaced that nice smooth sales funnel that we all used to deal with. And it's a long, circuitous journey that takes a long time and involves a whole team of people making decisions. At the beginning, in problem identification, you might have 2 people, and in the middle stages, you might have 8 people on the decision team. At the end, in supplier selection, in that stage, you might have 2 people, and they might be different than the first 2 people that you talked to in the beginning of the buyer's process. Marketing and sales has to talk to all of those people at different times, in different ways, in different channels, like you see here in the red circles. This really defines one of the major problems that companies are having. They're built for a linear sales funnel when the buyer's journey today is really more defined accurately by what we see with this complex sale. So you can see that it's very lots of stops and starts. It's a circuitous journey. It's not that smooth sales funnel that you see in this next slide. For example, this is what we all used to talk about as the sales funnel, the marketing funnel that we're all used to. What happens today is because it's harder and harder to sell, people get stuck in those top early stages and they're downloading a white paper and companies are trying to reach them and they're hiding because they don't want to be, buyers don't want to be found. They're not ready yet. They're doing their online research. Well, that's a really expensive part of the sales journey. How can we unlock that and focus more on the middle of the funnel, middle of the buyer's journey, where people have budget, authority, and need those people are going to be far more effective and efficient and profitable for a sales organization to focus on rather than these early stage funnels. So when we're diagnosing a problem like this, the solution is never, well, you know what, let's just swap out our CRM. Let's just change our salespeople. Let's just change the marketing message. Let's come up with a new theme. It's never those one isolated ideas. It's a system that marketing and salespeople have to build, and it's a system that will be more effective at generating opportunities as opposed to early stage sales leads. And that system is based on people, process, and technology. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. Getting beyond lead gen to opportunity gen and it involves what's called sales process optimization. And we really want to look at all three of these dynamics. We want hunters, not farmers, for our people. We want the right process consistently followed and documented. And then last, we want technology that people are actually going to use. Many people use technology and they put it in place and they really struggle with execution on that technology. And that's what we're going to talk about aligning with today. So all three of those elements are defined by crisp execution. There's a line that many people say, if you really want to get traction, you have to have all three of these. Otherwise, it's like trying to nail Jello to a wall. Just not going to produce any meaningful, substantial results. So if you think about it, there's really no magic bullet in marketing today. As I said, it's not just a question of swapping out Salesforce for HubSpot or HubSpot for Pipedrive or whatever software tool that you're using. It's a comprehensive system that involves all three, people, process, and technology, in order to solve that. We're going to talk today about new technology tools to use, new people approaches, and new content approaches that really are going to be aimed at that middle of the funnel. First and foremost, let's realize here that we're talking about building a marketing engine. And it's a little bit like a flywheel approach. So what we do is we're looking at content, and let's look at middle of funnel content instead of top of funnel content. When we create the right content, that pushes people to search engines, that pushes our rankings higher, which then pushes people to our website, which is then optimized for conversion. And when we do all three of those things well, it's a little bit like a flywheel that just spins faster and faster and faster. All of that is built on a tech stack that tracks our ROI messaging. So the first thing that companies kind of struggle with is, well, what's the definition of a lead and what's the definition of an opportunity? And we often see that this process isn't really very well documented, very well defined. There's not always alignment between the sales team and the marketing team. Let's just take a few minutes to identify what's a lead and what's an opportunity and where we're trying to go with that. So suspects, a lot of people, there's a lot of databases out there. We are big fans of Seamless and ZoomInfo. We really think that those databases are really very powerful. But in many ways, they're really just able to identify suspects. For example, if we've got a client in the processing industry that wants to sell components to process engineers who work in the chemical industry, that's fine. We can pull a list. Those aren't leads. Those shouldn't be given to salespeople. They're not sales ready yet, right? So they are really just suspects. However, if somebody in that list, in that target ideal customer profile, visits my website and they download a white paper there, well, now all of a sudden they're a lead. Still early stage, still top of funnel. I would say still not ready to be turned over to a salesperson yet. So now, when are they ready to go to a salesperson? When they're worth the expensive salesperson's time. Salespeople are expensive. They're highly paid. They're highly valued in any organization. So you want to use their time correctly when when a contact is ready for them and not before. So those are prospects. They're not opportunities. They're just prospects. And you've identified them as somebody who matches your ideal customer profile. They have buying authority, they have the need, they have decision-making ability, and they have the time frame where They need to solve the problem now. That's called BANT. They've asked for a demo. They've done more than just fill out a contact us form. They're really sales ready. Maybe you've talked to them at a trade show. So now they're a prospect. Okay. Once the salesperson contacts that person, if they, pick up the phone, if they answer, if they respond to an email, if they go to a meeting, and the salesperson is able to say, yes, this is somebody we want to sell to, well, now they're really an opportunity. Not all prospects convert to opportunities. So it's another distinction that you have to realize and keep in mind. And obviously then you'll quote the opportunity, you move them through the buying decision making, you convert them to a customer. So all of these stages need to be defined, documented, and agreed upon between the sales and marketing teams. So as I said, a lot of times we see these handoffs happen too early. Sales wants people who have exhibited active buying signals. That means that they're in the middle of the sales funnel. They're really going to buy something. And we're going to talk about how we can identify who those people are. So marketing, we have to realize that our job has kind of changed from lead gen to opportunity qualification. If we measure ourselves by how many leads we generated, that's nice. But increasingly, we're kind of talking about that as a vanity metric. It's important to generate leads. It's important to get them in that sales funnel, but we should be measured by the number of opportunities and the dollar value of those opportunities that we're generating. So this is really critical. If we want to transition from lead gen to opportunity generation, what do we have to do? Well, there's 3 steps we're going to talk about today. One is changing the content that we generate away from top of funnel to middle of funnel. This is a common problem with a lot of companies that we work with, a lot of companies that we talk to. We see that they've done a great job of building top of funnel early stage content. They are missing or lacking in middle of funnel content. I'll give you a checklist of what that is. It's kind of hard to generate. That's why a lot of companies have a gap there, but that's really critical for generating opportunities, not just leads. Tech platform, we're going to talk about a variety of technology tools that we're using and that other people are using, and not anything proprietary to us. You can get them as well. We think they're great. And we think that they have demonstrated the ability to convert leads to opportunities and opportunities to customers, and obviously customers with revenue. And then the last step is sales process changes. And we're going to address the hunter versus farmer issue there as well. So as I mentioned, let's do this content flip. Let's move away from only generating top of funnel content like white papers and move to middle of funnel. Now, I mentioned that's a gap for a lot of companies. One of the elements to middle of funnel content that has to be there is what we call comparative messaging. Don't tell me what you do, tell me what you do better. Don't give me a data sheet that gives me specs. Tell me why this product performs better. Don't provide a white paper that is general. Tell me why your product is better. So that comparative messaging is really very critical to build in and bake into middle of funnel content. So when I mentioned what we typically see with middle of funnel content, we'll see case histories and testimonials, a lot of A versus B, my product compared to somebody else, my technology compared to somebody else, teardown videos and animations, calculators, buyer's guides, product configurators and selector guides, pilot and trial offers, and then live chat and self-service FAQs. These are all ways to get people engaged with your content, engaged with your website in ways that are going to uncover whether they're early stage buyers or actually middle funnel buyers looking for a solution that they've got a budget and authority to solve. So when you think of top of funnel content, it's really addressing the question such as, hey, do I have a problem? Is there some problem out there or is there some solution to the problem that I have? And then middle of funnel content is answering the question, do you have a better solution than what I'm doing now? So we want to kick out those top of funnel early stage tire kickers. we still are going to be writing white papers, but we have to supplement that with these middle of funnel content pieces. Now, there's a side benefit to generating all of this as well, and that's in the answer engine optimization, AEO, GEO world that we live in now. When you do a Google search, what happens? What do you see at the top of every Google page? We all know that you see this AI answer. Is pump A better for my application than pump B? You're going to see an answer that Google AI provides, or you'll see it on ChatGPT, Claude, Complexity, whatever your favorite AI tool is. We have to write content that these tools and the Google are going to find and index and include in their AI answers. That is a critical shift that's happened in the last 12 months of this AI world that we've been in. So we're not only looking at being ranked organically high, we have to get ranked in those AI answers. I'll tell you a story. We had a company the other day who said, you know what, we need to see more traction in our sales for this particular product. And we go and look at how they're ranking, and they're ranked organically 6th. Not so bad. They compete with some really big companies. And in the old days, a 6th organic position, sure, we always want to be in 1 through 3, but we're not really out of the woods. The problem with being even number 6th organically was it was way at the bottom of the page. So it wasn't really being seen. The AI answer didn't include a reference to the company or the product. Then you see all the people also ask. Then you see all the videos. By the time you get to the organic listings, even the number 1 position, you've scrolled pretty far down the page. So it's an AEO, GEO world today. You have to generate content in a way that these answer engines are going to find your content and think that it's relevant enough, it's precise enough to answer the question that was asked to include you in the AI answer. That's really a critical element of marketing today. It's a critical benefit of generating middle of funnel content. So those are the content changes that we have to have. Step 2 is changes in your tech stack. So I want to talk to you about a couple tools that we're using. So the first step is many of us have HubSpot or workflow automation tools that keep in touch with people, multi-touch sequences, email sequences during a very, very long sales cycle. Some of our clients have sales cycles that range from 6 to 24 months. So you have to be able to keep in touch with them during those workflows. And those workflows work best when they are based on a different persona, a business buyer versus a technical buyer, very different messaging. Those workflows work best when they're product specific or industry specific. I want to know what you know about solutions for my industry. I want to know what you know about solutions for this product need that I have. If you're doing generic workflows out there to respond to leads, you're going to really have trouble moving them from those early stages of the buyer's journey to middle of funnel. The other tools that we're using are ZoomInfo, de-anonymizers, and air gap tools. And I'm going to talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. And many of them, particularly ZoomInfo, ZoomInfo is a dynamite database. It's the best database in the market, we believe, for generating contacts and suspects and for prospecting, early stage prospecting. It's great for that. But ZoomInfo is a really powerful tool. And we think that using ZoomInfo as a sales database, as a marketing database is great, but it's only 20% of the value of the tool. So we encourage people to use the other features of ZoomInfo that I'll talk about, custom intent and website, those 2 features in particular, really add a lot of middle of funnel impact to your marketing and lead generation, your middle of funnel opportunity generation efforts. So let's talk about those 3 things in particular. The air gap I'm going to cover first. So those of us who have been doing B2B marketing for many years have always been faced with the problem of ROI tracking. I want to take a lead and I want to take an order and I want to know which leads generated orders. Pretty basic thing. We've all been trying to connect those dots for many years. It's not a simple technology solution to make. And what we mean by that is many marketing platforms like HubSpot, we're a HubSpot VAR, but this is really common to Pardot and all of the marketing platforms. They're based on the contact. They're based on John Doe at acmemanufacturing.com. CRMs, however, are based on the account. They track activity based on everything that's going on at acmemanufacturing.com. So if John Doe becomes a lead, but Sally Smith at that same company sends in the purchase order because she's in the purchasing department or she's in a different department, there's an air gap between those two sales and marketing points where the contact is disconnected from the purchase that exists in the CRM at the account level. How do we solve that air gap? We'll never have an ROI tracking platform that works until we connect and bridge that air gap. So we use a tool called ListenLayer. It's really very effective. There's other tools that are similar, but we happen to spend the most time with that. ListenLayer has been effective in attaching, for example, a HubSpot ID tracking number at that very early stage, and it tracks all the activity that company and that individual engages with all the way up to the order, or at least until the quote, if you don't want to go into the ERP, up to the quote and the close one stage, so that we are able to start to identify leads that turn into closed won revenue. So that air gap tool, critical element to your tech stack that you need to add for middle of funnel accountability. Zoom Info. I mentioned this a minute ago. That's a second element of our middle of funnel tracking activity. So I mentioned there's 5 basic tools in Zoom Info that we'll typically call on. The database is a big part of that, but there's 2 things that we just really deploy as aggressively as we can. The first is called websites, and what that does is many people come to your website and they'll visit, they'll go to a few pages, and then they leave without filling out a form, without downloading anything, without going to contact us to leave their information. Pretty frustrating. Zoom Info will tell us who that visitor is. In 15% of the case, even though they didn't fill out a form, they'll tell us who it is by domain, certainly, and in 15% of the cases, they'll tell us the specific individual's name, email, and phone number. That's pretty good. So if I'm a salesperson, that's a critical middle of funnel signal. Somebody coming to my site, fitting my ICP, going to 3 pages or more, visiting critical pages that I know a buyer is visiting. I want to know who that is, certainly at the company level, and I want to know who that is at the individual level if I can get to it. Even if Zoom Info is not telling me who the individual is, it will tell me the other decision maker titles in purchasing, engineering, management, finance, and whatever the buying personas are on the team I'm trying to target. It'll at least give me those people, and then I can begin reaching out and targeting them to get them to raise their hand. The second critical tool in Zoom Info that we're really passionate about is what's called custom intent. So Zoom Info will tell us if someone is out there doing a search for a critical buyer category, a critical product category, or even my competitors, and never even coming to my website. Well, I want to know who those people are all day long. And any salesperson wants to know who those people are all day long, because if someone's looking for a competitor, if somebody's doing a search on my product category or my technology category that I know is critical, that's a trigger point, I want to know who those people are at the moment they're doing that search. They're active buyers for me to reach out to. Now, so those 2 features are the critical features that we really, really like: websites and custom intent. I mentioned that Zoom Info only tells us who those people are, maybe below the domain level, maybe 15% of the time. So what we want to do is get to the rest. So we're using, going back to ListenLayer, they have another tool that we use beyond the air gap, where it's a de-anonymizer. Tough word to say, but it's telling us who the individual is at the person's name, work email, and phone number level. Really very powerful. These de-anonymizers have become more and more widespread. ListenLayer is a good tool that we like. We've used others. They have a lot of noise in it. We think ListenLayer is kind of one of the cleanest out there, but we've got this deployed in a variety of clients, and we're really pretty pleased with what it's doing. Let me give you some examples. So this is an example of what a de-anonymizer screen looks like for one of our clients. And I can see that, Matt Olney at this company, DLA Piper, which is in my target list, has visited the site. I can see what their industry is. I can see what their phone number is. I see that they came in from a Google organic search, and over on the right, I can see what pages they visited. I can see that somebody from NVIDIA visited and who that is. I can see that somebody from Bodycode and Qualitrol. These are great companies, and that if they're large companies, so it doesn't help me that much to say that somebody from NVIDIA came, but telling me that Joyce Tan came and what page she visited and what her phone number is, yep, I want that all day long. And then we can move that down to tracking opportunities. This is another client where we've installed the air gap tool. So now I can see the list of opportunities that marketing has created. And in just a 2-month period for this company, for example, we've got $1.3 million in open deals that marketing has generated. We can see it by the deal, we can see it by the name, we can see it by the source, whether it was an ad or organic or some other campaign that we did. Really very powerful stuff. So this is helping us generate and drive middle of funnel marketing and sales opportunities. So and we can even get it down. This is just opportunities, 1.3, and we can see that we closed $400,000 in orders from this marketing and sales middle of funnel activity work. So we're doing all of this because we've created new content. We've created a tech stack that you can see here, lots of different interconnected tools. Some of them have been around for a year. Some of them are new AI-based tools. But that interconnected tech stack that addresses the air gap, that addresses the de-anonymizer opportunities that we have, really very powerful for moving us forward. So now I want to talk about the last thing, and that's the sales process changes. There's a variety of these assessment tools that are out there. We've used Culture Index a lot, good tool. And one of the Culture Index consultants was doing a workshop, and he said, I was called into this company and they had me do an assessment of all their salespeople. And I ran them through the Culture Index tool, and they came back and he said, well, no wonder you're having trouble doing sales. Your sales department is filled with farmers, not hunters. And this is the critical element that needs to be solved in today's marketing environment, where you've got people who want to hide, where you've got people who aren't answering the phone. It takes a hunter to have the persistence and the skills to reach these people and turn people into real valid opportunities. We can get Zoom info, but if people aren't going to log in and use it, it's just another tool like CRMs that just sit there idle. We need people. The average rule of thumb is that it takes 10 to 12 contacts, phone call, LinkedIn, email, before you can actually get a conversation with somebody. Most people stop after 1, 2, or 3. So if you are a sales organization filled with hunters who are going to go all the way through, all the way up to 10 or 12 contacts and not give up, then you're going to have a better opportunity, a better traction in taking advantage of this new content and these new sales, these new tech tools that we're putting in place. So one of the elements that we're working with people on is appointment setting. Again, this ties into taking advantage of Zoom info. Companies are going to trade shows and they're coming back, and they're not really doing a lot with all of those opportunities. Department filled by farmers is just not going to really convert those into face-to-face meetings or Zoom or Teams meetings. And appointment setting has to be part of your middle of funnel sales and marketing activity. Better dashboards is part of it as well. When we've got the air gap solved, when we've got our ROI tech platform in place, we're able to build, this is a Salesforce dashboard, for example, we're able to build a dashboard that says that, hey, you know what, for this company, we've got 14 million of sales opportunities that we've created. We've got 35 million of marketing inbound leads. We've closed and won many of those leads. We track them on here, and we can report that back. So for people who are saying, I don't really have good dashboards, I don't really have good metrics, the tech stack we're talking about really puts those metrics at your fingertips for in a very powerful way. So when we talk about building real bigger pipelines, that's what that CEO said to us at the beginning that I mentioned. I want to know what marketing is putting in my pipeline. I want better signals, and tech stacks can provide that. I want better orchestration between marketing and sales, and that definition of terms can help provide that, and better documentation can provide that alignment that we need, and clearer revenue accountability. The tools that we're talking about that solve the air gap and the tracking problems really will help us with that. Now, you can't do all of this at once. We build a sales process optimization adoption curve. We start at the foundational level, and as we go over time, we build additional tools on top of that, so that we're slowly and methodically building a sales and marketing process that is going to turn these early stage leads into far more effective middle of funnel opportunities. I just want to close with two last slides. One is this really famous slide that was created many, many years ago from McGraw-Hill. It was some of you who've been around a while remember McGraw-Hill. It was an old line publisher of B2B trade magazines. And they created this ad, and it's just as effective today, just as valid today. It's a crusty old guy sitting there, and he's supposed to be every sales prospect that you ever visited. And he says, well, look, I don't know who you are. I don't know your company. I don't know what you stand for. I don't know your record. I don't know your reputation. Now, what was it that you wanted to sell me? And if you're jumping ahead to the last line without doing all of that information, all of those process steps earlier about better content, better technology tools, better process, you're never going to get to the last line. You're never going to see the traction that you need. So that's really more the case today than ever before. And when it's all done right, you really can achieve measurably better marketing. You really can achieve the ability to see what people are putting in, see what marketing is putting in the sales funnel. And it's documented, it's measurable, it's revenue generated, and it's really exciting to see it all come together when you have it put in place. And with that, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us and turn it over to some questions. One question is, what are traditional white paper lead programs producing, or why are traditional white paper programs producing fewer real opportunities today? I'll tell you why. A lot of white papers are really oriented toward that early stage, do I have a problem? And they kind of miss the boat in going to the next step in the white paper document. And what I mean by that is they're identifying, you know what, my valves are not being efficient, my pumps are not being efficient, and it talks in general terms about problems that are out there, maybe touches on some solutions, but it doesn't go into detail on your company's specific solution. So there needs to be more comparative positioning and comparative messaging, as I said earlier. There needs to be more selling that goes on in some of these top of funnel pieces. So we advocate for, answering the question, do I have a problem, but also making sure that you're answering the question, do you have a better solution to what I'm doing today? Do you have a better solution than other companies that are out there? How can marketers identify anonymous website visitors from target accounts? That's a great question. One of the ways that we can do that is that de-anonymizer tool. We're also able, with our search advertising program, to upload target lists. We can include those target lists in Zoom Info. We can include those target lists in our Google Ads. So we can identify when somebody visits the site from a target account, whether they fill out a form or not, and send an alert automatically to the salespeople. So that's what I mean by these de-anonymizer tools, and those de-anonymizer tools and the Zoom Info custom alert and search intent tools. Those are really excellent ways to identify active buying cycles, active target accounts. how should marketers rethink lead scoring when the goal is opportunity creation? Yeah, that's a great question. So some of the early lead scoring models, when we're working with a company on lead scoring, some of those early models are based on they're based on how many times people visit a website. Sometimes people include a contact us form as a middle of funnel lead signal. We're not really sure that in every case that's correct. We tell people that uh, lead scoring, you really need to do that maybe 3 times before you get it right. And what I mean by that is look at your list of SQLs, sales qualified leads, sales ready leads that your lead score is identifying. Go through that line by line with your salespeople. They'll tell you this is sales ready, this is not. Use that feedback from the sales team to identify when those people are really sales ready and not just too early stage. Okay. Last question. What triggers should marketers monitor to identify buying windows? So let me answer that in the context of messaging, because I think triggers are important to understand. When we're building messaging for a client, we're doing that in 3 ways. We want to identify what we call only messaging, things that only that company or that product can do. Nobody else can do that. That's an only statement. That comes from Jim Collins and his Good to Great book from 20 years ago. So every company has, every product has a list of things that only they can do. You need to identify that and include that in your messaging. Second is triggers, and this is what the question refers to. What happened that day that was so painful, so critical for the customer to find a new solution for, that they went to Google and did a search? Those are triggers, and those are trigger points that we need to understand what occurred. When we do understand that, then we can write our content to address that. So those are trigger messages. And then the last is what we call switch messages. What's it going to take? What do I need to say to get somebody to switch from an existing customer, an existing product, an existing technology to me, to you? And that's what I meant by comparative messaging. Don't tell me what you do, tell me what you do better. When you inject that into your content, you'll find that it's more powerful and persuasive and is more effective at generating opportunities, not just early stage buyer leads. That is everything. As I said, thanks again for coming to the event. We will send you a copy of the slides, copy of the video. Contact information is on your screen right now. That'll be on the follow-up email that we send to you as well. Really enjoyed this session. Hope you did too. And have a good day and have good marketing and have good selling.